I said Australian high school, what's the very first thing that pops into your head?
Blank.
Is that an Australian high school?
Yes. One Australian high school or high school in Australia?
Yeah. Choose your own adventure, Dad.
Choose your own adventure. Well, for me, it's twofold because obviously I went to high school. Was threefold. I went to high school. I taught at high school. And then I had children at high school.
So you've got many different thoughts.
I've got various versions of what high school means.
G'day guys, welcome to the Aussie English podcast. Grab a cuppa, get comfy, and let's have a yarn.
All right, guys, welcome back to the Aussie English podcast. So today we're talking about high school in Australia, and Dad and I will probably have similar but different perspectives on this. Every country has its own version of high school, and Australians often assume that our experience is normal, but there were so many tiny routines and traditions that made it uniquely Australian. Today, we're going to rebuild what it actually felt like to go to high school here. So hopefully it'll remind Australians of their own school days and give everyone else a bit of a glimpse into growing up here in Australia. So, Dad, what do you remember about the moment you arrived at school each morning?
First morning of high school is still in my memory, and that was in 1970. So there you go. That's giving away my age. I think people already know that.
650.
So. Yeah, 600. Yeah, exactly. Back in those days, obviously it was the middle of, so just the end of summer. It's early February, so it was hot, but we had to wear a blazer, so a thick woolen coat, as you did when you were at school. A cap, a felt cap, woolen felt cap.
That sounds like cricket.
I know. In fact, it was green. It was like the Australian cricket. And it wasn't a baseball cap. It was like a baggy green cap that the cricketers wear. Not quite as baggy, but
they must have been phased out though. Those caps. I don't remember ever seeing.
No, they disappeared after a couple of years of my school, and by the mid-70s they were gone. Certainly from my high school and most of the state high schools at the time. So I went to
not functional.
No, so I went to a state high school.
Yeah, wow. Okay, and you had a blazer as well.
A blazer as well. Long socks, shorts. We couldn't wear long pants until we were in third form. So year 9 of high school. And even then, everybody wore shorts in summer, but and even in winter we did. But first day of school, so I marched off to school in my blazer and my long socks and my brand new pants and a grey short sleeve shirt. You could take your blazer off once you got to school, but you had to wear it until you got into class. So,
were you going with a lot of friends that you already knew from primary school?
Yeah. So, I went to a local primary school, which is a very large school, nearly 1,000 kids
back then.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
And then went to the local high school. We had 2 high schools nearby. One was a co-ed school, so boys and girls, and the other one was just a purely girls' school. So more than half the girls that I went to primary school with went to the girls-only school, and so there are a lot more boys at our high school than there were girls. But arrived the first day. It was hot. I remember it distinctly, and we had the assembly outdoors. We didn't have a gym or an indoor stadium big enough. That was being built at the time, actually, when the year I started. We didn't have a gym big enough to fit us all in to hold an indoor assembly. So we're standing outdoors, 200 and something kids in, first form, year 7. And then they just called out names. So 7A, and they went through the 40 names of the people who were in 7A, and then 7B, and they went through the 40 names, and 7A marched off to their room with their form teacher, and I was in 7F, the 6th out of 6, so an hour later, we're still standing out there in the now morning sun, and then went off to our room, and I have no recollection whatsoever of what happened as soon as we got in the room.
See, it's funny for me, it's the opposite, because I went to Geelong College when I was a high school student, and I'd been sent to a school where no one from primary school went.
Yes.
And so it was like starting from scratch again. Didn't know anyone. You know what? I do remember, I think it was the first day where it's hard for me to remember if it was an assembly or if it was that entrance exam, because I remember first meeting and interacting with two of my friends, Sam and Tristan, when I was in year 7. And I remember the hall that it was in, but I can't remember because I know they did the exam as well, but I can't remember if it was the exam or if it was the welcome assembly and everything like that. But I remember the classroom too, mainly that. I think that's where my main memories begin for high school. It was the classroom that I was in because it was such a different, looking back, it's kind of like that Harry Potter type vibe of classrooms, right? Where like in primary school, you're at these small little desks with little chairs that are kind of just your standard
and
four-legged
you went
chairs.
to a very new primary school. So.
Yeah, exactly. And then when I went to high school, it was one of these schools that had this old-fashioned, would you say like buildings, and the desks were old, so you would go into these rooms and you're like, these feel like they're 30, 40, 50 years old, and the desks are all old. There's a big blackboard in front of you, whereas I don't remember having that same vibe from the primary school. Everything was whiteboards and texture and all that sort of stuff. But we had the same thing with the blazer, the long socks, the shorts.
Yeah, so I remember...
The tie was the hardest thing for me to get used to.
Tie as well. Yeah, I remember we used to wear a tie at primary school.
Oh my God, okay.
How weird is that?
I don't think there'd be any primary school, besides the private schools now in Australia, there'd be, and I don't even think the primary school...
This is in the 1960s.
The private school primary schools don't make them wear ties until year 7, I think.
No,
so,
exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I remember classes at, in that first few weeks of school very well. But that transition from the standing out in the heat in the sun to then being marched off to the room. And I remember which room it was. But then whatever happened in that room at the time where, it was there, welcome to high school, and I'm your English teacher, or blah, blah, blah. But no, I do remember the classes pretty well from there. But it was just an interesting little process to go through. Mm-hmm. And it's a funny transition because back in the 1960s and 70s, the idea of transition from one year, school year to another one just didn't exist.
Yeah.
It was just suck it up, prince and princesses, and off you go. So having had a fair degree of responsibility as a grade 6 child at primary school, to suddenly being one of the little kids and treated like little kids with no responsibility whatsoever. And of course, you've got 17 and 18-year-olds at the same school. These are adults. As far when you're a 12-year-old,
I remember I was talking to Kel about that in one of the previous episodes.
Because when you started school, you went to a middle school as your first 7 and 8. 7 and 8.
Although it had a few of the upper primary school years there too.
But it was sort of, I think it was grade 5 to grade 8.
Yeah.
And then you went to the high school, then
it was
9 to 12 after that.
But even then, from year 9, it was still felt a bit like that. You were like, oh, geez, these guys are like
they're adults. Yeah, exactly.
They're huge kids.
And I remember them really well. It's like these people that, you think of now and you go, they're 18 years old. But, it's
just a boy. Just a girl.
But these are men who are shaving and
I had that
girls who look like women.
I had that on the bus though, especially because I used to have to get a bus from, obviously the school was half an hour away driving. Yeah. So I had to get a bus each morning. And I remember the older kids sat on that back seat at the back of the bus. Yeah. And that was kind of the hierarchy thing. It was pretty much anyone sat anywhere, but the back of the bus was always the year 12 kids. Year 11, year 12 kids. And I remember looking at those kids and just thinking, oh my God, they're huge. And
they're old.
Looking back, you're like, you're only a few years away from being the same.
I know, it's only 5 years.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was nuts. So what was the morning routine like for you?
Excuse me.
What was the morning routine like for you?
The morning, as in before school or at school?
Yeah, well, I guess going through you got up in the morning, then what happened all the way to starting school?
So get up in the morning, at that time, when I was, just starting high school, it literally was just get up in the morning, have breakfast, go to school.
Yeah.
And school was 1.5 kilometres just over that away.
So you just walk.
So it was walk or ride your bike.
Yeah.
If it was belting down with rain, every now and then Mum would drive us.
I was going to say she'd make us run.
She'd make us run. Yeah, get there quicker.
She'd chase us with a stick.
And this is, so exactly. She'd drive.
And stick out the window. Hurry up, you rats.
No, so that was ride your bike or walk to school, and some of the kids who lived a bit further away used to catch a bus, but it was just, there was no school bus, it was just the public, buses that they would take, because there were 2 bus stops right outside the school for 2 different, bus lines that went past. And then you'd usually get there 15 to 30 minutes before school started. After a few weeks, you knew enough people, you'd hang around with your mates and you'd be playing a lot of down ball, tennis.
We called that foursquare.
Yeah, we didn't play foursquare. It was just a tennis ball up against a wall.
Yeah, I wonder how much
banging
the
a
name
tennis
of
ball
that
into the wall.
sport was related to whether or not you had like concrete blocks nearby, because they would often put those lines in them so that I guess if they broke along the lines.
We invented it so that you didn't have any rules at all. It was all you needed was a wall and enough space to bounce a ball.
So it's sort of like squash, was it?
Yeah, but you had to it was handball, so you're literally hitting a tennis ball with your hand into the wall, but you had to bounce it in there.
Yeah,
and so one bounce hit the wall, and then the ball comes off the wall, one bounce, and the next person has to hit it. And so you could play in twos or threes or fours, and if it was threes or fours, you'd have to cycle through.
So funny. What did we have?
And then you'd play doubles, and
I think we had the four squares, so it would be you would have four squares of concrete, usually blocks of it, or you would even if it was bricks, you would know where the kind of the cross line is. And then I remember dunce was the guy at the bottom, and as you won,
you progress up the four squares.
And there was I think it was dunce, jack, queens, king, or something like that. Like I guess card game or something. But you had to bounce the ball in your square before it went into the other person's. So you couldn't just smash it because then it wouldn't bounce.
No, you had to bounce it in yours, land in somebody else's, and then they had to do the same. So so there was a bit of that. During the winter, it was much more, kicking a ball around, soccer ball or a football.
Yep, did that as well.
Australian football, for those who think soccer is football.
Yeah.
And that was about it, really. And then there was a morning assembly every morning. So you'd stand outside. So there was a morning assembly every morning.
And it was outside, you were saying?
Outside, until we get the school hall got built that year. So by the end of the year, there was a hall that would fit the whole school in.
So it was only outside because there was no hall.
But it wasn't the whole school at the assembly. It was in various quadrangles. There was sort of, the junior schools, equivalent of what we now call 7, 8, and then 9, 10, 11, 12 were somewhere else. Once we got the whole indoor stadium thing, then we only held school assembly once a week.
Yeah,
we didn't hold the whole school assembly every day.
That was the thing that I did when I was at school as well.
Distinctly. And it was only in that first year that I can remember it, as standing outside every morning, and in the rain, didn't matter, standing outside.
Did your blazers smell like wet dog if they got wet?
Oh yeah, it was wool.
I always remember that.
They were pure wool.
I always remember.
I still have it. I still have that blazer.
So do I. I've got mine in my thing somewhere. So we're just going to open a beer here.
Yeah, yours is only 20-something years old though. Mine's
more than that. Well, I guess it's probably the last one I had.
Mine's getting close to 60 years old.
So.
Yeah, you lost one. Thanks very much. Cheers.
Yeah, I remember dreading that.
Typically opened a beer.
If it was raining on the way to school and you're walking, you were like, shit.
Oh, no.
I'm going to smell like dog for the next hour and a half.
But not just you. Then
Everyone.
But you got to hang it up in you, because we had 2 lockers. We had a coat locker and a normal locker, which you had your books and stuff in.
Yeah.
And then you'd hang the thing in the coat locker, and the coat lockers were shared. So you get 2 wet woolen blazers by the end of the day.
Especially if it heated up or something later. Yeah, I distinctly remember that smell of just wet dog, and always just being like, this smells like, surely they have another way of making these.
Yeah. And the other thing that flashes to my mind, which is no surprise given the testosterone-driven 12-year-old that I was at the time, is that we had the leadership in the school, the teaching leadership in the school was a principal, who was, in this case was a man.
Yep.
And then we had a headmistress who was in charge of the girls.
Mm-hmm.
And the headmistress was a dragon. She was a horrible human being.
Aren't they always?
I know. But and I've had these sort of reminiscences with people, and some of the people, particularly people older than me, who went through the school before me, who had her as an English teacher, said she was wonderful, and she probably was a good English teacher. I never had her as a teacher. But
it's as soon as they become mistresses or principals or whatever, they just turn into absolute, what.
And she used to walk around with it was a ruler, the yardstick they used to call on the yard, like a metre ruler, for those who use the metric system, that were designed to as blackboard rulers, so that you could draw a long, metre line on a blackboard. So the big handle at the front of it, and And she used to walk up the girls' corridor. So the boys and girls were separated into different corridors where their lockers were. And she would walk up the girls' corridor, the year 7 and 8 girls' corridor, first and second form, as we called it at the time.
Yeah.
And with her yardstick, and she would lift their dresses, the school dresses, to check the colour of their underwear. They had to wear regulation coloured underwear.
Good grief.
It had to be either white or this horrible tan colour, which was one of the school colours. Our school colours were green and brown.
That would not pass the pub test today.
And of course, there's 100 12-year-old boys standing at the end of the corridor.
Oh my God.
And she just kept doing it every morning.
Just
it was just, it was the most blatant bullying of...
Oh, so she didn't need to do it, but she just did.
No, well, does it really matter what colour underwear girls are wearing? Like...
Yeah, okay.
This is...
No, for some reason, and when you were telling that story, I'm like, were they required to do that every day as a way of kind of like keeping people in place and humiliating people, or is that just her being a bitch?
That was just her. Yeah. I don't think many other schools did underwear checks for girls, and certainly not public ones.
Was the fashion at the time. That's just how teachers behaved.
Well, there was a lot of that. Yeah. Teachers had... And she'd probably been teaching since the late 1940s.
You wonder
if
it had been
early 60s.
She had it done to her, and she's like, I'm going to pass it on to everyone else. Here's the trauma that I had.
Exactly.
Good grief. So if someone had never been to an Australian school, what tiny detail do you think would surprise them about this sort of routine? Or
the routine? Well, again, there aren't many schools left. I don't think there are any left now.
Yeah.
That post World War II, in by the mid 1950s.
It was about when you were a teenager, right?
Yeah, something like that. There was this push to rebuild schools, to grow schools, and the state government put a lot of money into them. But they built these schools they called them light timber construction. They were very cheaply built, and they had these sort of cement. You know the cement bricks that you get, the cement blocks?
Oh, you mean the ones you get from Bunnings now that have the big gaps in the middle?
Bricks, they used to be called. They used to be called Besser bricks.
Cinder blocks or something?
Blocks. Yeah. They look like cinder blocks, but they actually weren't. They were tiles.
Oh, okay.
And they were just hung. They had little, they were cement, but they just had these little hooks on them. So the buildings were all with these timber battens on them, and these tiles were just hung over the side as the walls. And so
is that so they could be taken apart later more easily?
It was meant to be. They were meant to be temporary buildings. They were meant to be there for about 10 years, while the government got the money to rebuild the schools as
and the government never got the money.
I went through the school. The school was built in the late 1950s, 58, 59.
Oh, okay.
It was in that period.
So it was pretty new then.
It was pretty new, but by the time I got there, it was these buildings had already outlived their use by date. And they were still there. A lot of these buildings were still there 30 or 40 years later.
Oh,
now, they've all been replaced now, but so that was the thing that people who went to school in Victoria in the 1970s went, LTC buildings, light timber construction, they all look the same. Okay. And they're all built on this H pattern of two long corridors with a crossover corridor in the middle.
Yeah.
And the rooms were either side of those two long corridors. So you could walk into a school, and 20 years later I was teaching at university and teaching education and visiting education students on their teaching placements in schools. And I'd walk into them and I go, I know my way around this building. 20 years ago, it's exactly the same pattern as the high school I went to. And so that was something that people who went to school when I did just knew what a high school looked like.
Yeah.
Unless you were in the inner suburbs of Melbourne. And I can only talk about Victorian schools, but in the inner suburbs of Melbourne with some of the older schools were old brick 2-story buildings, and they were very different. But
the thing that would have been classic around my era would have been the portable classroom, right?
Yeah.
They seem to be everywhere at that time. I don't know if they're still like that or if they've all been phased out.
Because there was a period in the early 1990s, late 80s, early 90s, where there was a decision made by the Education Department in Victoria to not build a high school for more than 700 or a primary school for more than 350
kids.
I
was going to say 1,000.
Yeah, no, permanent buildings.
Okay.
And then if schools grew, they would put portables in. And the idea was to make them flexible because populations of schools come and go as the local population grows.
Well, that happened from my primary school, right?
Yeah.
I remember, I think probably the initial years I was at 3 and 4, I was in the main building.
Yeah.
But then once I got to 5 and 6, there were, I don't know, four portable rooms.
Now there's 15 portables.
How would you
there.
describe what it is, a portable classroom?
They were usually double classrooms, again, built where they could literally ship them in on the back of a truck.
Yeah.
They split them in half.
Yeah.
And
I guess they're like prefab buildings.
They're prefab
right?
buildings. And they're
External air conditioning.
Yeah,
and,
I know. Yeah, and they literally bolt them together, and they can take them away in a day.
Yeah, and there would be like a ramp between the two. There would be two pairs of classrooms on either side, so it's literally like a block of four. And the ramp would go up into the classrooms in the middle, and you would just shuffle out into your all the bags and coats and everything would be on the outside of the classrooms, and you go in. But yeah, with high school it was completely different for me because I went to the younger high school part of it, like the middle school, would have been slightly more recent.
Yes, that wasn't an old school, but
whereas the main school for 9 to 12,
that was the second oldest school in.
I think it's 150
Victoria.
years old.
It's older than that now, 170 something. So
the Brits will be laughing, but
well,
people from Britain will be like, "That's not old."
Well, it's old. That school was created about 15 years after Geelong was settled.
Yeah,
so
I know. Yeah, it's nuts. So.
I think the other thing that, sorry to interrupt you, but I think the other thing that would, shock is probably a strong word, but surprise people is corporal punishment.
Yeah, we've talked about that before, but you want to explain when, how, why?
Yeah, I was at an era, by the time I got to high school, I was at an era where teachers didn't dish it out themselves. But if you were being punished for misbehaviour either in the classroom or in the schoolyard, you got sent to the deputy principal, who would literally,
the local sadist.
Yeah, stick your hand out and they'd pull out a lump of wood and smack you over the head with it.
10 of the best.
10 of the best, yeah, exactly.
I mean, we laugh now, but I can't imagine, that would have been...
I know.
It's so weird to think that back then it was so normal to hit kids with wooden implements.
And I remember the guy's name. I won't use it.
He's dead. It's fine.
No. Well,
no, he's not.
The vice principal would be.
Yeah.
But the student not.
Okay.
He was I think he left school after year 11, but had fifth form at school.
Got sick of being hit.
This guy was the toughest guy I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
And I remember the rumour had it, and of course nobody else was in the room, and he was so tough that he wouldn't tell the story about himself.
Mm-hmm.
But rumour had it that when he got sent to the vice principal, the vice principal was going to give him the belt over the hand, that he actually grabbed the stick and then turned around and said, "Now it's your turn."
You've been over, yeah.
And the punishment stopped, allegedly.
Yeah.
Now, that's a myth, and it became just broadcast across the school at the time.
It must have been an awkward situation where you would have had teenagers that probably got bigger than a lot of the teachers by the end of the high school. And then you were like, put your hand down. And if they said no, what are you going to do?
Well, they just expelled them from school.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. But in the end, you get expelled for refusing a punishment for something that was completely trivial, like talking back to a teacher or swearing in class or hitting another kid, which, schoolyard violence was common, but not extreme.
Really? Yeah, because mention that quickly, because that's probably another part of it. Did you have a lot of violence at school?
Oh, there was always the fight behind the shelter shed.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
See, that was the kind of thing when I was at Geelong
I'll meet
College.
you at lunchtime behind the shelter shed.
You would have been expelled straight away. Yeah.
500 kids. It was never going to be a secret. Why behind the shelter shed? Because 500 kids would know about it.
You don't want the teachers
minutes.
to stop you. Yeah,
exactly.
No, that was I never got to see any. I think I saw one fist fight once, and it was after school, and it got broken up pretty quickly. And I think I remember the teacher saying, like, "You guys need to leave now, or I'm going to tell the principal, and you will get expelled if I mention what I just saw. You guys are fucked. Like you need to leave, go in opposite directions. Yeah, exactly." Which was crazy. It was almost like he was more angry that they had put themselves in a position of being expelled.
Or they put him in the position to actually cover for them.
Yeah. So you had quite a few fights, did you? Because I
never got in a fight at school.
Yeah, neither did I.
I was big. I wasn't particularly aggressive. Believe it or not, I was actually quite shy when I was young, probably up until the age of about 14 or 15.
Yeah.
But I was big for my age. So,
people
tend not to pick on big kids.
Funny that.
But although, one of the kids that used to get bullied, and bullied was emotional bullying, not physical bullying.
Of course. That's the best
was actually
kind.
Quite a big kid. But,
that was what we experienced as well.
Yeah. And there was a lot of that going on. I remember there was a kid, I will use his first name, Tim.
Fuck him.
And if Tim, you're listening, you'll know the story. Tim had a growth disorder.
Okay.
When
he was smaller than others.
he was about the size of an 8-year-old when he started high school.
Right.
Now he ended up
a pituitary gland.
and he ended up having growth hormone and so on.
Yeah.
And by the time he was 15, he was the same size.
There was one of those
else.
kids at our school as well.
And he was a lovely kid. But because he was so small, you could just pick on him.
Yeah.
And you literally lock him in a coat locker and turn it around so that he couldn't get out. Where's Tim? Oh, he's bang, bang, bang.
Jesus.
There are other ridiculous things that used to go on, but bullying kids. But bullying doesn't change. It's just the method of it.
I don't think we had, at least at my school, we didn't have that kind.
Excusing it at all.
Yeah, we didn't have that kind of overt stuff because, again, I think it was just punished too harshly.
Yeah.
The stuff that used to happen would be on the bus or before or after school where they could effectively be like, well, it wasn't at school.
Yeah. Once you got your blazer off, you can do whatever you like.
Yeah, that's it. But it was never, I don't know, you couldn't really get away with too much. It was usually just the emotional, verbal abuse.
But funnily enough, I loved high school.
Yeah.
Absolutely loved it. And you don't think of it like that at the time, but then in hindsight, you look back and go, yeah, they were pretty good years, 6 years of high school. And I think a lot of it was the school.
Mm-hmm.
The teachers mostly were really good. Not necessarily great teachers, but great people.
Yeah. I guess that often makes it, right?
It does.
I remember having that at university quite a bit, where you would have teachers for a certain subject where one would switch over in the middle of the semester, and you would be like, why has this subject gotten so much better?
Yeah.
Or so much worse?
Interesting.
Yeah, and it would be like, oh, it's about the teachers, enthusiasm or connection.
Ability to tell a story.
Exactly, yeah. So
or just being human. Yeah.
Yeah. So who was your favourite teacher then at school and why?
My favourite teacher was an art teacher, and I enjoyed art, but I was an academic. I used to enjoy maths and science, and that's what I intended to do.
Yeah.
All the way through school, but. So I enjoyed doing art, but I never took it seriously.
Yeah.
But there was an art teacher, a young American guy, and that was one of the other things. In the early 1970s, there was an extreme shortage of teachers in the state of Victoria.
Yeah.
And so the Victorian government, the education department, were importing young teachers from Europe, Britain in particular, and America. Mm-hmm. And so we had a lot of first-year out teachers, like 22, 23-year-olds, who had come from America or Britain, or we actually had one Egyptian guy who was hysterical because he almost didn't speak English. He probably spoke perfect English, but he was completely unintelligible. His accent was so thick.
Yeah.
And this guy was an American, and he's a young guy. Like, he probably, by the time I think I was in sort of third form, so 14, 15, and he was like 22.
Yeah, isn't that weird?
So he just tended to be one of your mates.
It's so weird. I had one of my friends through high school, same year as me. I remember we went to uni together. He ended up working in the drama department of a high school, an all-girls high school, from 21 on. And I was just like, are you crazy?
Yeah.
Are you wanting to go to jail? Like these girls, you're teaching year 12 students, or you're helping. You're an aide. You're working with them. They're 3 years younger than you, dude. You are looking for trouble.
Yes, I know. I know. Another flashback to, again, testosterone driven. Although at this time I was probably it might have been sixth form, 17, 18 years old. And the school was every year they'd put on a play or a musical production or whatever. And the play they were doing this time was The Diary of Anne Frank.
Mm-hmm.
So very serious,
it's morbid,
morbid sort of thing. But and one of my friends was in it, a female friend.
Was she Anne?
No, she was a sister.
Yeah, okay.
And so a bit part in it.
Yeah,
but there was a quick costume change that was required in it, and I wasn't in the cast, but I was in the back crew, doing the stage and all that sort of hoo-ha. And this young lady, extremely attractive young woman, said, "Ian, I need help getting out of my costume. Can you help?" Because there were no girls on the backstage crew.
I trust you,
and I trust you. You're a friend. You're a friend of my boyfriend. And the female teacher who was sort of supervising the background, she is no longer alive, so I can call her Olivia Howard. Her name was Granny Howard. And Granny, she was in her 60s by the time we started
Isn't
school.
Isn't that fucked up to think you're in your 60s now and you're like,
I'm a late
I'm not
60s.
that old.
I know, exactly. But and And I remember this young lady undressing and me unzipping her and helping her with her clothes off. And she's standing there in her underwear, just bra and knickers in her underwear, and I'm handing her clothes.
Yeah.
And Mrs. Howard, who was one of my favourite teachers, and I was one of the teacher's pet when I started the school because I was good at maths. She was a maths teacher. She was absolutely mortified. She said, this young woman.
And you're just like, would you say no?
Here, put your clothes on. We're done.
Yeah.
And
so she thought you guys had gotten down to it or something?
No, I don't think so. I think she knew what was going on.
Yeah,
but it was the fact that I was there doing it. And I said,
okay.
you can help. You do it.
Someone think of the children.
I know. She was just mortified. And we used to laugh. She and I, the young lady, not the teacher, used to laugh about that for ages afterwards. I think we've given poor old Granny Howard a heart attack. But
So once you got into school and you've gotten ready and gone to class, how were the days sort of structured?
How was the day set
what was
up?
it like?
Well, it changed from when I first arrived. We had 8 40-minute periods a day.
Okay. So and what's a period?
A period is a class.
Yeah,
so
okay.
an English class.
Right?
An English class would last 40 minutes.
So you had 8 of them. Good grief.
Yeah, 8. I know. So you'd have 2.
Yep.
And then morning break.
Yep.
Then 2, then lunch break, then 2, then the afternoon break, then 2, and then go home.
Good grief. That sounds like
I know.
Stacked.
I know. But the real challenge was that for some things like the specialist subjects like art, phys ed in particular, they were double periods.
Phys ed, physical education.
You can't do sport, physical education.
Yeah.
You can't have 40 minutes.
Quick, change.
Right, all go, get changed. Right, go out there. Here's a football. Right, now get back in, have a shower, get changed, you're done.
I hope you enjoyed your 5 minutes of play.
Exactly. And so, but everything else was single 40-minute periods. And so you'd end up with, all right, I'm in English here, and then I've got maths next period. But it's 5 minutes walk away, and you sort of run to the next class, and then line up outside the room and go in.
How much do they sit down and think about that? Before?
And then by the time I was in, I think it was probably fourth form, year 10, 11, they changed it to 5 1-hour periods a day.
Yeah, that was more which
is a bit of overkill because it's hard to break 5 into having 3 breaks during the day. So they only did 2 breaks.
Yeah,
they had a morning break, then a late lunch, and then you were done. After
I think
that,
that's
so
how
it wasn't
was
3
for me
breaks.
too. I think it was
But
recess
an
and
hour
lunchtime.
period was a long time.
Yeah,
and then a double period was fantastic. For art, you spent half the day doing art or sport or whatever.
Yeah,
that was really good. And so it's always a mixture of those things. But the fact that, and having gone from primary school where you sit in the same class with the same teacher for everything except. You might go to the library
language class or phys ed, sport.
Or sport or art were in a separate room, but everything else was in the same room with the same teacher. And of course, you understand that high school is structured differently. But then when you've actually got to cope with what room are we in? We're in room 8. Where's room 8?
And you have to have your
it was room 8 last year. It's now room 6 this year.
You kept having to go back and forth to your locker, getting different
and
books.
That was always the circus. It was the instruction came out about once a week for years. Take 2 periods worth of books with you. You don't have time to go to your locker between.
Yeah.
And then they would have the locker police, the teachers marching up and down the lockers in between period 1 and 2 or 3 and 4 going, don't go to your locker, get on it, but I haven't got my books. I don't care, get back to class, but I'm just going to be sent out. I don't care, move on.
Yeah.
So,
I missed that. I actually really liked when you got your next year's set of books that you were going to learn from.
Yeah.
And it was it was a very condensed kind of like, here's all the information you're going to get.
Everything I'm going to need for a year.
Yeah, that was fun, wasn't it? Getting those. I love getting your books and all of your stationery and everything.
I know. I'm still a stationery addict.
Yeah.
I walk through Officeworks, which is ink, paper.
So what was recess like? So you went to your classes or whatever in the morning, and then the bell would go.
The bell. Bells. When you got 8 40-minute periods, the bells are literally ringing all the time.
And then one's only just stopped before it starts
and
going
then they
again.
had warning bells. Before school, you'd have a warning bell of 15 minutes before class, and then right on class start time. And then at recess, you'd have a 5-minute warning, and then a bell. And then at lunchtime, you'd have the 15-minute warning, and then the bell. And then after, so bells are going all the bloody time. And must have driven people who live near the school nuts.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, you didn't really think about that, did you? The fact that there were houses across the road from a lot of these schools, and that the bells are going all the time,
all day.
Yeah, during semester.
So you'd grab your books from your locker and you'd go off to class and you'd do your 40 minutes and then you'd run off to wherever the next class was.
But what was recess like? What did you do for recess usually? How long was it?
Off the top of my head, 15 or 20 minutes.
Yeah, I think
lunchtime was an hour.
Yep.
Which is a long time. And then another 15. So it was an hour and a half break, I think. So 15, overall. 60 and 15. And so 15 minutes wasn't long enough to do much.
I know, you pretty much just eat something and be like, well, the bell's about to go.
Yeah, but mostly it wasn't eat for us. It was just get out and either that or it was queue up at the canteen to buy something.
That was always lunchtime where that happened.
12 minutes of your 15 minutes.
I know, yeah, exactly.
And then you'd be off to class again.
What were the items you were getting at the canteen typically?
The best. Winter was the best because our school. I don't know who invented it. I could lay claim to the increase in the item, but at one stage, somebody in the canteen, one of the canteen women, whether it was a parent or the woman who ran it, decided that over winter they would put bread rolls in the pie heaters, so they get extra pie heaters.
Heat them up.
So you could have a hot bread roll. And then you could have a hot bread roll with a sausage roll inside it.
Jesus.
And chips.
Inside it as well?
Yeah, not hot potato chips, but a packet of crisps.
Gotcha.
So you'd buy, you and your mates, you'd buy a packet of, a small packet of chips between about four of you.
Yep.
You'd buy a bread roll and a sausage roll and you'd put the chips in there and then you'd eat that. It was just complete and utter carb overload.
Yeah.
But
it's funny that we had that
but
same
you run
thing
it off
with
by 10 minutes later.
The sausage rolls and the
sausage
sauce.
roll.
Everyone always, not the roll, but the sausage roll itself. We always they were in little plastic bags at the time that had little holes in them.
Plastic hadn't been invented. So.
Yeah.
So the sausage roll, and then the chip edition was.
Did you have canteen orders as well, where you would have
lunch
to,
orders?
You'd get like a little paper bag, write your order on it with your name, put your money in it, the coins usually, maybe a $5 note, and then have that. Yeah, wouldn't have been for you, but for me it would have been. Yeah, that would have gotten you, all of the canteen's food.
Exactly, buy the canteen for $5 in 1970. We did, and I can't remember. Like at primary school, it was easy when you were doing it because it just came to your class.
Yeah,
and they. Yeah, it was, Ian, you're on canteen duty this week. You go and you buy this big, you go and pick up this big metal crate.
Yeah.
And two of you would struggle to carry this thing back to the...
I wonder if it was at high school you had to take it yourself in recess or something.
Yeah, high school I think you had, but then you had to go and pick it up from the canteen.
Yeah, exactly. You had to go get it yourself.
Yeah, so there was no delivery to the rooms or anything.
I know. Those soft primary school kids.
Primary school kids.
And what about every lunch? What would you do when you had a bit more time?
Sport.
Yeah, pretty much.
Sport.
Right. Soccer, footy.
Sport. Girls, sport, girls, sport with the girls, sport. Mostly.
I spent a lot of time in the library, looking
soccer
back, funnily enough. It was with the nerdy kids. I ended up sort of falling in with them. We would play soccer on the main oval or play chess and watch like Family Guy on our laptops because we had laptops back then. This was, some of the early years of bringing laptops into the high school. And it was weird because I think we got them from year 8. And looking back, God, they were these Toshiba bricks. We had these huge computers. And we were amazed. We were like, whoa, 3 gigabytes of data, 64 megabytes of RAM. And you would be like, whoa. And what else? We had like, at the time, everyone was torrenting, pirating. In fact, we wouldn't have had torrents. It would have been wares back then.
Yeah, just pirating.
And using websites to get music. Music and videos, movies, So getting things like American Pie. And you would have to download it in 2 sections.
Yeah,
and it would be an awful like resolution.
480 pixels
it was
wide.
Terrible. And we would. The funny thing was that back then we had like the ability to burn CDs. We didn't have. It was before DVDs.
Yeah.
And this was when the computers could burn CDs.
Oh, you can just copy the music off a CD.
Yeah, and so we would download all this stuff and often just copy the files onto a CD, and then people would just share it around.
Yeah.
So everyone had the latest music and everything, and. It was a funny time.
Yeah. So sport was the thing, and it was soccer mostly.
Yeah,
because soccer was easy.
Yeah. And more people probably wanted to play it. Yeah. AFL's a bit more technical, right?
And at lunchtime, the first year I don't think it happened much, but after that we had a teacher. He was a St Kilda footballer, VFL at the time, which became the AFL, and he had the genius idea that you could lend out sporting equipment at lunchtime. So It used to be the race to the sports.
There's only one of everything.
To go, I want a football, I want a soccer ball, I want a cricket ball and stumps and a bat, or I want. And then over winter, he used to open up the gym, the stadium, which had volleyball courts and table tennis and badminton was the thing, because you could fit 6 badminton courts on this thing.
Yeah,
and it was before basketball became a thing. It was really weird. Like basketball
it wasn't popular here.
No, it really wasn't. And the trouble with basketball is it takes up a lot of room.
The court.
Yeah. Whereas badminton, you could play doubles, and so we'd play a lot of badminton during winter. And
yeah, we would always have those basketball courts where you would have like 3 different sports worth of lines.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah, it's a tennis court, a netball court, a
badminton court,
4 square all over the place.
Yeah, you would just be like, "Good grief, what are we?
I know.
What am I looking at?
Where are the yellow lines?"
Did you have no hat, no play? Did you have no hat, no play?
No, which is why I've got skin cancer.
Yeah, good.
No, none of that. No hat, no play.
I guess that came in when I was in primary school, didn't it? I remember. I
basically came in around the time you started primary school.
Yeah. Wide brimmed hats, no hat, no play, and we had to have sunscreen on, I think, too.
Yeah.
And
the school provided the sunscreen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was sports carnival days like? Did you enjoy those?
Well, I loved it because I was good at it.
Yeah. I remember. I've got a story for you. Sorry. There was this guy I went to school with called Nick, and it was always really funny because he hated sport. He was this typical, really intelligent, Nick. You remember Nick?
Yeah, Nick. Yeah.
And read I remember going to his house one day, and I think it must have been when Harry Potter came out, and it was that day, and he's like, "Oh, I finished it this morning," and I'm like, "What the fuck do you mean you finished it this morning?" He's like, "Well, I just read it.
Just read it, done nothing else."
Like, what do you mean you read the whole book? And these were the chunkier ones, like 4 or 5, right?
Yeah.
Harry Potter 4 or 5, and he's like, "Yeah, I just smashed it out in 3 hours," and I'm like, "That'd take me a week."
Yeah.
He was an animal, but he would always he always
had a hamstring injury the day the athletic sports.
He did trumpet for years 7 and 8, and it was so funny for all of high school. I thought he did trumpet because he would always be each week he would bring to school his trumpet in his little trumpet case. He stopped trumpeting in year 8. But he kept bringing it to school.
So he could do music practice instead of sport.
No, well, he always used it to get out of classes he didn't like or out of sport.
Oh, I've got a trumpet lesson.
Yeah. And I was always like, "Where did you go?" And he's just like, "The toilets." But he used to use that. He used to somehow use trumpet or something to get out of all of the sports carnival training
so
stuff.
We had because you had Saturday sport.
Mm-hmm.
Private schools have compulsory Saturday sport.
You had to train 2 days a week before school or after school.
Yeah.
And then on weekends you'd compete against other schools.
And whereas we didn't have that, our inter-school sport was Wednesday afternoons.
Yeah.
And so if you were in a school sports team, they were fairly selective. So there was a junior team and a senior team in most sports. So it wasn't every year level, but and so I played soccer most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a soccer team from sort of year 8 onwards, second form onwards. And so you'd go off and either another school soccer team would come to your school and play, or you'd go off to their school and play, and be bussed off and do it every Wednesday afternoon. Now, if you weren't playing and those sports seasons were quite short because you only played within the close zone, so you weren't travelling, unlike you were travelling from Geelong to East Melbourne to get to it.
It'd be like a whole Saturday.
So we would only play like 5 other teams, so you'd play for 5 weeks and you were done. So the rest of the time, Wednesday afternoon was organised sport, so you could pick a sport. All right, we're playing golf. So we lived in Beaumaris, so we're across the road from some of the best golf courses in Australia.
Mm-hmm.
So you'd go off to Sandringham Golf Course and play golf, or you'd play basketball or badminton or table tennis or something in the gym. You'd just play, or squash. You'd go down to the local squash courts and play.
Mm-hmm.
So that was sort of Wednesday afternoons. But then we had swimming and athletics as well. So the swimming sports were in first term, athletic sports were in fourth term. And so we had houses at school, so 4 teams at school.
We had 8,
Yeah, and so we'd have our house sports, and then the winners of those would go on and represent the school at the local sports, and then there would be regional and then all state sports. So fortunately, I was good enough in both, so swimming and athletics, that I made the all state every year.
Yeah,
and so that was summer and tail end of summer and the beginning of summer was was swimming and athletics. So, and that was great fun. Still really enjoyed, because I was doing athletics outside of school as well. Stopped doing swimming when I was about 12, so I didn't get to high school to do swimming outside of school, but still did it at school.
Yeah, we had a swimming pool at school. Used to have to do that. I can't remember how often, if we had a swimming lesson or something once a week, or if it was once every couple of weeks.
No,
I remember
our swimming training was an outdoor pool at either Moorabbin or Clayton, so you had to be there at 7 o'clock in the morning.
Oh wow, okay, brutal.
Do an hour of training, and then get showered and dressed and back to school.
Would you get dropped off, or
it had to be
public
parents would drop you off and then drop you back? It wasn't. There was no.
You organise it.
Yeah, exactly.
So school is obviously more than just buildings and classes. Who are some of the characters that you remember from school?
Well, funnily enough, Thursday, 2 nights ago, I booked tickets to see Colin Hay, the lead singer from the band Men at Work in the 80s.
I come from a land down under.
And I didn't go because I was sick, but I bought him for your mum and her brother went. And he was at school 4 years ahead of me at school. Yeah. So he was a character then. Everybody knew Colin.
Yeah.
Because he was Scottish, which was unusual. B, he was a very good soccer player. C, he was a musician. And he was an extremely good musician. So whenever there was a school thing on and, there was an assembly with performances and stuff, Colin would be up singing and doing stuff. And I remember to this day just sitting here going, this guy's incredible. He's going to do something. And, at the age of 72 or 3, his birthday was the other day too. He's still travelling the world playing music. So he was one of the major characters. We also had a couple of other highly, just trying to think when, he was probably a couple of years before I got to the school. We had the world's best squash player. Yeah. Like 2 years after he left school, he was the world champion.
Jeez.
And so actually one of my favourite stories about him is, not about him, but about his sister. And I've given away the punchline already, but I was doing squash one Wednesday, one term of school. We were playing squash, and there were 4 of us that used to go and play down at the local squash court. So every Wednesday lunchtime, we'd get on our bikes and ride 3 or 4 kilometres down to the local squash court. And one of the young female art teachers was the teacher designated to supervise us. Her supervision was she would drive her car down there, make sure we were there, and then hang around and then leave.
Because they have a cigarette in the car.
Yeah, no, she was good. But and then one day, one of the 4 of us was sick and couldn't go, wasn't at school, and she just said, "Oh, I've got my gear in the car. I'll fill in."
Yeah,
and I drew the short straw and had to play her.
Yeah,
and back in those days, squash scoring is a bit different now, but back in those days, she just said, "Oh, you can serve." That was the last time I had the ball in my hand.
Jeez.
She beat me 9-love.
She was just that good at it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I went, "You've played this before, haven't you?" Because I thought I was good. I was not a great squash player, but I thought I was all right. And she said, "Yeah, my brother taught me." And I said, "Your name's, Mrs." She was probably in her mid-20s. You're married. "What's your name?" She said, "Hunt." I went, "You are kidding me." Jeff Hunt. She said, "Yep."
Yeah, so he was a famous player back then.
Yeah, and he was the best player in the world. And he had a squash centre nearby, and she just said, "Yeah, that's all right. I'll pay you back for this, though." She said, "You come down Saturday morning to Jeff's thing, and I'll get him to give you a lesson."
Wow.
So I had a lesson from the world champion. Didn't make me any better, but I understood what I had to do. I just wasn't capable of doing it.
It's funny. I remember when I was doing fencing, I had a lesson once from the Commonwealth champion, and she couldn't teach for shit. It was amazing that she was so good. But when, because I think she was just there, and the coach was like, "Oh, do you want to give Pete a lesson in sabre? Teach him some stuff." And she's like, "Yeah, no worries." And I remember
she just thrashed you.
She just didn't know how to explain what she was just like, I just do it.
I just do it.
And I'm like, well, that doesn't really help me. I'm going to need a bit of an explanation.
Yeah. Well, the one thing Jeff told me, which stuck with me forever, is that he said, squash has got nothing to do with how well you hit the ball. It's controlling the court.
Yeah.
He said, you need to get back to the centre of the court.
At all costs.
at all costs.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not hitting the ball so that your opponent can't get to it. You're hitting the ball so that you get back to the centre to hit the next shot.
Yeah.
So that you're only ever 2 steps away from it. So if you get stranded away from the centre, you're done.
Yeah,
You know,
gotcha.
All right, guys, this episode actually ended up being quite long. I think we ended up talking for over an hour and a half, so I've decided to sort of chop it here, and I will include the second half of this episode as a bonus episode for premium podcast members. If you would like to listen to the second half and support the podcast at the same time, please sign up to be a premium podcast member at aussieenglish.com.au/podcast. You'll get bonus episodes, you'll get all 1,400 or so free episodes, but you'll also get the premium podcast player for all of them so that you can listen and read at the same time, and you'll get all of the downloadable PDFs for all of the episodes that have them as well. So again, if you want to sign up for that, level up your English while supporting the podcast, check out the premium podcast membership at aussieenglish.com.au/podcast. The link will be in the description. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.